Pradibodhidam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gradhidam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaidam Mridavashinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarudastunnanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namah. We are continuing the discussion on the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Last time we discussed the fifth verse of the fourth chapter. Today we are going to discuss the sixth verse. Ajopisan avyayatma bhutanam isharopisan prakritim swam adhishthaya sambhavami atmamayaya. This is the verse. We are entering into a very important, a very significant part of the whole text. Here Lord Krishna explains the mystery of what we call in Sanskrit Avatara or incarnation. What is the spiritual explanation of the strange phenomenon of some great men and women appearing, emerging from time to time in the history of the human civilization? In different cultures, in different traditions, suddenly some outstanding person emerges and he puts in order a new spiritual paradigm, not altogether new. He brings forth the best from the past and he reinterprets it according to the needs of the contemporary times, and then he passes over to the next generation. Such outstanding people belong to different categories. There are some epoch makers, and also there are some great saints, sages. These epoch makers are technically called incarnations, and the great saints and sages, they also realize the truth of the spiritual tradition. They implement it in their life, but they also put it forward to the next generation. So the sixth verse is, Lord Krishna says, though I am unborn, aja means unborn, still I happen to be born. This is the central thesis. What does it mean? Lord Krishna says, as Atman, as the all-pervading, transcendental, spiritual, divine reality, I am beyond and without the six changes. The six changes are Jayade, Asti, Vardhade, Viparinamade, Apakshiyade, Vinashyati. Something that is born, that is a change from a state of empirical non-existence to a state of empirical existence we call birth. Then exists, grows, evolves, decays, and dies out or disappears. These are the six changes. So, anyone who is birthless is also deathless. And such a person doesn't go through the changes that we call growth, evolution, decay, etc. So, though I am eternal, everlasting, deathless and birthless, still of subjugating prakriti, the three gunas, I come into being, I happen to be born, I happen to take a human body. And that doesn't mean that the all-pervading reality, Brahman, becomes a human form. It only means that all-pervading divine reality. It, without being under the control of prakriti, without being under the control of the three gunas, sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna, without being subjected to the normal human tendencies, weaknesses, going beyond the human dimension, going beyond the dimension of nature, still I happen to be born because Atma-maya here, according to some interpreters, Maya here means Jnanam, like Ramanuja Acharya would interpret Jnanam, Atma-jnanena in that respect. Satya-Sankalpena. Satya-Sankalpa is a unique phenomenon. Now, all spiritually elevated persons are sometimes called Satya-Sankalpas. They are capable of producing and assuming any kind of human body at their own will. This is one of the powers that the great spiritual mystics accomplish according to Vedantic tradition. So, Ramanuja takes the meaning of Maya to mean as Jnanam, Maya Vapunam Jnanam iti, Jnanapadhyayaha atra Maya shabdaha, Atmiyena Jnanena Atma Sankalpena ityarthaha. So, Atma Mayaya, by my own, assuming my own Maya, which is actually within my control, through Satya-Sankalpa, through the divine will, I happen to take the human form. That is the description of Avatara according to Ramanuja tradition. But this is not acceptable to Adi Shankaracharya's view, who gives a much more profound and philosophical interpretation to the whole verse, depicting the mystery of incarnation. So you find here Aja, Avveya, Bhutanam, Ishvara. Three qualities are mentioned here. The Lord Krishna says, I am unborn. Now, we all know, those of us who studied Bhagavad Purana, who studies the life and teachings of Sri Krishna, we all know that he was born as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So, how can such a person claim to be unborn, Ajam? No, cannot be Aja. So, I am unborn when Lord Krishna says, by I, he means Atman. He identifies himself with this transcendental divine dimension. So, in that sense, I, as the Brahman or Atman, in that sense, I am Aja. Then Avveya. Avveya means without any change. It doesn't change its form. It remains the same in the past, present and future. It also is beyond the 6 changes that we already discussed. Birth is a change from a state of non-existence at the empirical level to a state of existence, the empirical level. It's called birth. So, something that is born exists, it grows, it evolves, it decays, and also it begins to decay and it dies out. These are 6 changes. It's called Shadvikara, means 6 changes. So Lord Krishna says, I am unborn and I am devoid of any of these changes. And then Bhudanam Ishvaraha, I am the Lord of all beings. Ishvara means anything, the controls, regulates, who is presiding over everything. I am the Lord, I am the presiding deity of everything. I am without any change, and I am ajam, and I am avya. Still I am born. So all of these great spiritual teachers, they are born and they appear to take human form, but they do not have in their life, they do not have any kind of the human weaknesses. So Atmamaya means by his own will, Svechaya, by one's own will. Now, in the Shankaracharya's commentary, this idea is much more philosophically explained. So we shall discuss, let us see what Shankaracharya has to say on this subject. Bhashyakara says, Ajopi janmarahitopi san tatha avyatma akshina jnana shakti subhavaha api san tatha bhudanam brahmadi stamba padyantanam ishvaraha ishana shilaha. So though janmarahita means something which has no birth, which is beyond birth, death, etc. As I mentioned already, as we discussed. Avyatma, avya without any change, kshaya rahita. Akshina jnana shakti subhavaha. So, jnana shakti, the bhagas, is by Upadakshana we can say all the bhagas. Lord Krishna is endowed with Jnana Aishwarya Bala Virya Tejo Visada Sampannaka. So all these great qualities are without any decay, it is infinite, beyond any kind of estimate, it means inestimable, of the highest effulgence, of the highest knowledge, of the highest power, highest splendor. So all these great qualities called bhagas, which constitute the characteristics of Bhagavan, are beyond limit, they are infinite, limitless. Apisan bhudanam brahmadi stamba paryantanam ishvaraha. So bhudanam ishvaropisan. This Atman, Brahman is, it is present everywhere, and it is present in everything, and it is beyond everything. So Brahmadi Stamba Paryantanam, from the highest Brahman up to the smallest insignificant blade of grass, all are within the control, within the power of the Brahman. Apisan prakritim swam mama vaishnavi mayam trigunatmikam yasyaha mayayaha vashe sarvam jagadvartade yaya mohidam satsumatmanam vasudevam na janaditam prakritim swam adhisthaya vashe kritya sambhavami. So how does incarnation happen? According to Vedanta, the all-pervading divine energy, Atman or Brahman, it appears to take human form. So Lord Krishna doesn't imply that, but in order to logically expound the verse in the light of Advaita Siddhanta, Advaita philosophy, Bhashyakara says, Sambhavami dehavaniva bhavami jata iva. So, actually Brahman doesn't take birth. If anybody tells you that this divine all-pervading reality takes human birth, then it is beyond normal human logic and reason. So, it appears to have taken the human form. That's why the greatest spiritual teachers, even in their most insignificant, unguarded moments, display the divine connection within them. They reveal their inner inherent divinity within them. You can find these characteristics in the lives of great men like Jesus Christ, Buddha, Shankaracharya, Sri Ramakrishna, you find the greatest spiritual seekers, not only those who are necessarily born in India or in Sanskrit tradition or within Hinduism. Wherever you find the great epoch makers in spiritual tradition, those who inspire millions or billions of people in course of time, those who inspire and those who guide and lead humanity for thousands of years, they belong to this category of incarnations. So they don't become human beings, really speaking. Why? Because you find, if you read the New Testament, some of the statements from Jesus Christ reveal that there is something more than the human aspect in him. He was not just a carpenter born to another carpenter. He was not just a son of a carpenter called he was not just a Galilean carpenter born to another Galilean carpenter like Joseph. In the acts, in the teachings of Jesus, you find that divine reality, the divine connection, the divine touch that you find. So that's why Sri Shankaracharya, in a very philosophical language, says incarnations in a way are not real, because God doesn't become human, or Brahman doesn't become human. But then you can find the divine reality being present and revealed in the actions, in the lifestyles of these great incarnations. That's because there is a divine touch in whatever they do. So at the empirical level there is a human aspect, but in reality it is the divine aspect that dominates their life and teachings. Tacha janma kada kimartham ityuchyate. Now when does this happen? So Bhashyakara says, the Shankaracharya connects one verse with the other. So there is a logical connection, logical link between different verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhashyakara connects the 6th verse with the 7th verse. Tacha janma kada kimartham cha iti uchyate. So when does this divine incarnation take place? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tada atmanam srijamiham paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskridam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. The simple explanation is yada yada hi dharmasya glanihi hanihi varnasramadi lakshanasya praninam abhyudaya nisresa sadhanasya bhavati bharada abhyuthanam udbhavo adharmasya tada atmanam sujami aham mayaya. So when there is a weakening, a decay in dharma, and there is an increase of adharma, when dharma becomes weak, ethics, morality, the great positive virtues and values that shape and preserve human civilization and culture, when those values take a descent, they take a hit, so to speak. When they are affected, when suddenly human civilization faces the risk of complete annihilation of the basic fundamental spiritual ethical values that preserve the totality of human civilization, when this tragedy, the catastrophe, is about to emerge, suddenly there is a divine phenomenon emerging somewhere in the world to preserve this dharma. And then what that incarnation does is paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya cha duskridam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. In order to protect the virtuous people, in order to remove the obstacles that stand in the way of dharma, in order to destroy the obstacles, the problems, the causes that cause the decay of dharma and the increase of adharma. With this purpose in mind, the divine incarnation takes place. Here dharma should be taken in the true Vedantic sense. Dharma here means Satyam, Ritam and Dharma. These three values come together, should be taken together. Ritam is the cosmic balancing system. Ritam is what actually preserves the world, sustains the world, prevents the world from collapse. So it is an invisible interconnectedness, a harmonious thread that runs through the entire civilization, that is called Ritam. And that Ritam is inseparably related to Dharma and Satya. Satya is truth, truthfulness. Truth is an important value that preserves the interrelatedness, the inherent harmony of human existence, cosmic existence. And Dharma is nothing but the practice of the Satya in our day-to-day life and conduct. Adaya, Satyam, Shaucham, Tapa, the number of qualities are implied here. So whenever there is an imbalance that threatens to destroy the world, leading to the increase in adharma, increase in wickedness, evil, the opposite of dharma is adharma, which leads to the collapse of the existing system and the natural increase in the wicked ways of the world due to decrease in morality and ethics and spiritual values. So what happens? A divine phenomenon begins to emerge. This should not be limited to the monotheistic interpretations of incarnation or Avatara, either in the Abrahamic tradition or Vedantic Hindu tradition. In the Abrahamic tradition, also Hindu popular Puranic tradition, you find an incarnation is a big, strong person who comes with a book with some rules and regulations. As modern agnostics, modern rational philosophers, agnostics and atheists put a divine policeman who keeps a watch over the happenings in the world, ready to punish, to pounce over the evil, and ready to protect the good. It is not that kind of a ruthless, monotheistic, divine, transcendental entity that is meant here. What it means is there is an inherent balancing system. It is part of the preservation of the cosmic rhythm, what's called rhythm in Sanskrit, cosmic balance, so to speak. So whenever there is a demand, whenever there is a requirement for something sublime and great, there will be a response to that demand from another part of the world. So such divine persons are called incarnations. We should not limit this incarnation idea to its narrow socio-anthropological limitations. Incarnations have happened in all cultures, in all civilizations. A positive spiritual force suddenly emerges, which puts back the existing balance. The verse continues. After that, we will come back to these verses because they are very important verses, so we will discuss more. Kimartham, as I mentioned, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya duskritam. Paritrananam means protection. Sadhunam paritranaya. Duskritam vinashaya cha. For the protection of the virtues and for punishing the evil doers. And also for preserving, for establishing dharma. From time to time, I incarnate in the world in human dimension. This is a literal meaning, more or less. Now, you can find this in a distant way. You can find this even in the happenings in nature. Frequently, we talk about preserving nature. We should protect rivers, we should protect oceans. But actually, when we disturb the oceans and rivers and nature, the nature hits back. So we should learn to protect ourselves from nature's fury. That's what really happens. Due to global warming, there will be tsunami, there will be floods, there will be famine, there will be due to deforestation. All these are different ways of human attempts to disturb, to put in balance the existing rhythm, the harmonious existence of the cosmic phenomenon. And then what happens? Suddenly there is a reaction from nature. Even this, the terrible problem we are facing these days, which actually led to this problem of lockdown. Because we declare war upon the existing balancing system that preserves the world and human life. That is called dharma. So in order to protect the dharma, in various cultures, divine persons have incarnated from time to time. But in a country like India, which is a glorious spiritual tradition going back to 6,000 years, you find the number of these divine persons and these divine phenomena taking place from ages to ages may be specially noteworthy. But we have to remember, in all traditions, the divine persons have emerged. The language they speak, the way they use parables and illustrations to drive home their teachings may be different from culture to culture, from one historical context to another historical context. But if you look beyond the diversity of the language used in their preaching, the Buddha used prakriti, which is a corrupted form of Sanskrit, and Jesus spoke in Aramaic, and Shankaracharya spoke in Sanskrit. Sri Ramakrishna in the 19th century spoke in his own vernacular language, Bengali. So you find these divine incarnations, they may speak the language into which they are born. They may use illustrations that are familiar in their native culture into which they are born. So there may be many factors, socio-anthropological factors, which may appear to be some limitations, but we should look beyond these limitations, and then you find the universality of their teachings. And the universal teachings can all be boiled down to the central spiritual philosophy of Advaita, which teaches us the cosmic unity, the oneness and unity of human existence. So now we will read some of these explanations from other traditions. Now, there is a discussion in many of the Sanskrit commentaries as the difference between an incarnation, these epoch makers, the spiritual epoch makers, and ordinary saints. There are saints and sages in all traditions, and there are epoch makers. The main difference is these epoch makers, these spiritual persons we call incarnations, they are not affected by the prarabdha karma. So prarabdha karma means certain karmas or actions and their results which are responsible for our present life, for our present embodiment. It is called prarabdha karma. They are not affected because they are born. They're born with this inherent, highest spiritual realization of their identity and non-difference with the all-pervading Brahman, Atman. They do not have to struggle hard to realize this truth. They may also may follow the path of other saints and sages, even Lord Krishna, who taught this, who is considered to be the incarnation of God, Vishnu, in Hindu tradition. He himself had to go to a Gurukula, a teacher. So, Ahoratra Sadushashtya, that's why Lord Krishna spent 64 days Adhitravati Kala. So he studied 64 branches of learning in 64 days and nights. That's means 64 days, generally speaking. But Lord Krishna, who was an incarnation, had to go to a Gurukula of the sage Santipani. Shankaracharya, Ashtame Chaduro Vedan, Dwadase Sarvashastravit, Shodase Kritavan Bhashyam, Dvatrimse Munihi Abhyagad. Shankaracharya was born as in a village. By his 8th year, he had studied all the Vedas, Vedantas, all great philosophical systems. By 12th year, he had become an omniscient, all-knowing, divine scholar. By 16th year, he had already completed all his great writings, philosophical writings, the greatest Sanskrit devotional poetry, all he completed. And by 32nd year, after founding 10 monastic orders, 4 great monasteries in 4 distant corners of India, authoring the most exalted divine devotional poetry in Sanskrit, installing temples. And then he disappeared. Munihi Abhyagada, Vidyaranya Swamiji writes in his Shankara Digvijaya. He disappeared. Sri Ramakrishna lived for less than 50 years. Vivekananda 39 years. You find many great spiritual persons within a very short time, they accomplish great things. So where do they come from? What's the mystery of their accomplishing so much, achieving so much within a short period? Very often in modern times we read about geniuses, prodigies, children who show extraordinary powers of cognition, cognitive faculties, learning, but they don't become outstanding. Very rarely you find them making great contribution to world civilization, culture, and spirituality. They may make, at least some of them make great contribution to physics, mathematics, music. Very few of them are remembered even thousands of years after their passing away. Because though they are prodigies in the empirical sense, they are not incarnations. So one distinct quality of an incarnation is, as time rolls on, their spiritual stature begins to grow higher and higher, and their teachings become more and more relevant and accepted in course of time. and they continue to inspire, guide and teach humanity for thousands of years. That is one unique feature of an incarnation. In the Brahma Sutra, Sankalpa Deva Tuta Sutehe it's mentioned here, that is Satya-Sankalpa. The great spiritual teachers, like incarnations, they can assume a body of their own. Because of their power of will, they can influence the physical metabolism with their mind, because the mind is linked to Atman, it's so sattvic. So they are capable of doing great things. So next verse is this. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvadah tyaktva deham punarjanma naidi mamedi sorjuna. He who knows in reality this divine nature of mine, Lord Krishna says, those who know my divine nature, the mystery of my birth and my action, my so-called birth, so to speak, that person will not be born again, because he will realize the highest truth. He will become a Brahmajnani. Now here also we should remember, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vedi tattvadah. What does the Lord mean by my birth and my action? Shankaracharya says, Janma maya rupam karma cha sadhu paritranadi me mama divyam apragrutam aishwaram evam yadhoktam yo veti tattvadah tattvena yathavat. So the point is, even when you worship Lord Krishna as an incarnation, we must always remember the incarnation, which in reality is a synthesis of the human and the divine, is actually divine only. The human aspect is only is relative. It is not absolute. That's why Jatavan Iva, as if born. That's mean it's Lokanugraham Kurvan Niva, as if working for the world. The Lord as an incarnation is born in a place, may live for many years and do great things for the preservation of dharma, ethics, the totality of spiritual culture of humanity, and also to remove the obstacles that stand in the way of human civilization, like adharma. So all those things could happen, no doubt about it. But these actions themselves belong to the empirical plane. That is an important point. Shankaracharya makes it clear. Janma maya rupam karma. So the birth itself is maya rupam. Maya means it is only empirical, it is only relative. So also, even actions involving the preservation of dharma or the destruction of the obstacles, removing the obstacles of adharma, that is also only relative. That's why mama aprakritam. Aprakritam means beyond logical understanding, beyond what you find in the scriptures or books. Aishwaram is divine. Those who realize this mystery of incarnation will realize the truth of the birthless dimension of that incarnation. Means he will become a Brahmajnani. So that's why when you pray to deity, we should not pray to the deity as a highly exalted being. we should pray to the deity as the infinite, transcendental, spiritual reality. Many of the most sublime Sanskrit devotional poetry, including those in the Bhagavad Purana and also Shankaracharya's devotional poetry, they involve a sincere, moving prayer to the monotheistic aspect of incarnation, but always conclude with an invocation of the impersonal, the higher monistic aspect of the same incarnation. Behind every incarnation, there is that impersonal, divine, eternal reality, Brahman. So that Brahman takes the human form. The human form comes and goes. All these incarnations, they lived maybe for a few decades. Even Buddha lived only for 80 years, quite a long time though compared to other incarnations. But still, his lifespan was only 80 years. So that Buddha aspect, as somebody born in Lumbini as the son of King Shuddhodana, that human aspect was only 80 years in this world. But the spiritual ideal that Buddha represents, it was there before Buddha was born, it was there when he was living, and it will be there even after his passing away. This mystery of incarnations, the impersonal aspect behind the personal, the attributeless aspect, the attributeless dimension behind the attributes, the ajam, the birthless, deathless aspect behind this birth of incarnation. The one who understands that will also understand the truth of Brahman, will reach Brahma, will get Brahmajnanam. Tyaktva deham punarjanma punarutpattim na eti na prapnoti mam eti agacchati samucchade he Arjuna. So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, one who knows this birthless, this infinite dimension of the incarnation, my spiritual dimension, he will attain Brahmajnanam, he will attain unity with Brahman at the end of his life. He will not be born again. In most of the scriptures, it is mentioned that a sincere devotee who practices karma yoga, who does his duty as dharma without any selfish desire, he will not accumulate a huge stock of repository of prarabdha karmas. That person at the time of death, he will merge with Brahman, and he will not be born again. That will be the last birth. This is not intellectual understanding alone that is mentioned here. Proper understanding and meditating. So when we pray to the divine personality, whom we may install in a place of worship, we should remember behind that divine personality who lived in this world as a human being, as an embodiment of the human and the divine dimension, was actually in the absolute sense divine only, and we should invoke that divinity in every word that we use in our prayer, in every minute of our meditation. Then what happens? Even while praying to the deity in the temple, even while praying and thinking of a divine incarnation like Jesus Christ in a church, or Buddha in a Buddhist temple, even while thinking of Buddha in a Buddhist temple, or Christ in a church, or Shiva or Vishnu in a Hindu temple, even at that time we should remember, beyond and behind, going beyond all these socio-anthropological aspects, there is that eternal, infinite dimension. And that's what we should try to connect with. Then we will realize the highest knowledge the experience. That is the point emphasized here. Now, there are certain words used here. Tattvataka. Tattvataka means realization of Atma Jnanam. That's the idea behind. Bhashyakara again writes, introduces the next verse. Na esha mokshamargaha idanim pravurtaha kim tarki purvamapi. One important point is raised here. Na esha mokshamargaha idanim pravurtaha. Idanim na pravurtaha. I mean, this path of liberation, it did not emerge today or in recent times. Purvamapi, it was there in the past also. Because we should remember, when Lord Krishna says, Bhuni me vyatitani janmani davajajuna, etc., me is Shashti Vibhakti is used, possessive case. Like, so, in different verses you find Sambhavami, I am born, there also. So, when Lord Krishna uses the word I, mine, etc., he doesn't mean, by the word I, he doesn't mean that the person with the name Krishna, who was born in Yadavakula, who was the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. That is the mythological, the historical story. In the Bhagavad Purana you find. That human aspect is only part of the empirical phenomenon. That human aspect existed maybe for several decades. But he says, Bhuri me vetitani janmani. I had so many birth life cycles in the past. How can anyone say that? So there should be somebody or something that has gone through these innumerable life cycles in the past. So that reality is Brahman. That's the idea behind here. Vitaraga bhaya krothaha manmaya mam upasitaha bhagavo jnanatapasa putaha madbhavamakataha. So these great spiritual teachers, spiritual seekers, saints and sages and mystics who have lived in the past, they are the ones who become liberated. And then what is the path to moksha? That is also explained here. The path leading to moksha, liberation, is mentioned here. Vita raga bhaya krodhaha. Those are completely free from raga, bhaya and krodha. Extreme infatuation or obsessive attachment to certain things, even when we know that that attachment is not good. So that kind of spiritual enslavement is called raga. Bhaya. Those who have got raga, attachment to certain things, will have a fear of losing that object to which they are attached. So they are interrelated. And krodha, when they don't get what they have desired for, that also leads to bitterness, anger, disappointment, all that. These great spiritual seekers who become liberated, who go to take to moksha, they are totally free from this raga, bhaya and krodha. This attachment means obsessive attachment to certain things, leading to a kind of spiritual slavery, and fear and anger. They are totally free from this. Manmayaha. So, they are Brahmajnanis, they are knowers of Brahman, they have become one with Brahman. Mamupasitaha. They always are dependent upon me. The great spiritual seekers, they depend only upon God. Because they have realized that every other object of dependence can only lead to misery. Most of the time, people get into trouble because they expect and they have a desire for something exalted and sublime, and they expect perfection from things which are essentially imperfect. They expect permanence from things which are essentially inherently impermanent. So what happens? Disappointment, anger, all these problems will arise. Bhagavo jnana tapasa. And they ta jnana tapasa putaha. They become purified. They become purified by tapa, by extreme austerity in the form of Brahmajnanam. So they have become so pure by jnana tapa. That knowledge, constant thinking on the truth of our identity with the spiritual divine spark which is present everywhere, which makes us totally free from attachment to worldly sensory things, which destroy our fear, which make us completely free from anger, aversion, all these problems of mind, who depend upon God only and nobody else. They reach the highest spiritual realization. So Mam Upasita is very important. Most of the time people are not able to become free from extreme obsessive attachment to certain things, or then they are not able to become free from fear and anger because they depend upon so many other things. It doesn't mean that we should not trust anyone, we should not have any contact with anyone, not at all. Even in the midst of going ahead with our duties and responsibilities, even while going ahead with our daily obligations, doing our work for everyone, serving everyone, helping everyone, expecting things from everyone, we should have somewhere in the back corner of our mind the strong feeling and conviction that God is our only real friend worth depending upon. God is our only dependable reality. This was the secret of the strength, the mental strength of the great mystics of not only Hindu tradition but also the great mystics of Christian tradition. All other traditions you find, wherever there were great mystics and saints, they were men of indomitable will, strength of character. That's why Lord Krishna in the Gita itself, in the 12th chapter, Lord Krishna gives a list of the characteristics of an ideal devotee. Sandushta sadatam yogi yadatma dridhischyeha mayyarpidamano buddhi yoman bhaktasame priyaha. Who is my dear devotee? In the 12th chapter Bhakti Yoga, in the Gita itself, Lord Krishna discusses the subject. Who is an ideal devotee of God? An ideal devotee of God will have one important quality. He will never be miserable. And he will never be looking wretched, disappointed, bitter, angry, or looking for something all the time without getting it. He will have no disappointment because he has no appointment, so to speak. He will not be looking for anything specifically because he knows everything other than God is relative only. So even while living in the world, working in the factory and the office, interacting in the places of, even while doing business, working in a factory or office or university, while doing all these work, even while helping others, they will know that ultimately, at the end of the day, God is the only dependable person who could be counted on. So that strong feeling protects them from this raga, bhaya and krodha. So they become vita, raga, bhaya, krodhaha in the, as mentioned, the 10th verse of the 4th chapter. So the sandushtaha, sandushta is such a person who is always contented because he depends upon only the will of God, no one else, nothing else. Sandusha Sadatam yogi is always, is a yogi, is connected with the transcendental reality. Yatatma, he has put his mind and senses under control, because when you turn your mind to God, your mind gets controlled, restrained, and you are able to restrain your senses as well. So Sandushta Samyogi Yatatma Dhranishcheka. Another thing is strong will, strong power of determination. These qualities are natural for the highest devotee, and these qualities should be sought after and practiced slow by slow degrees by other seekers. Those who are advanced spiritual seekers will find that they have already these qualities as their second nature. And those who are still progressing and evolving and still practicing spiritual sadhanas, they should try to follow this spiritual discipline. That is, in spite of having the best of relations, friendly relationship with everyone in the world. We should not hate anyone. We should always be friendly, helpful, compassionate to everyone, and try to do our best to serve and be of help to everyone. But at the back of our mind, we should know that we should always depend upon God, and God is actually the only person, only reality that is worth depending upon at the end of the day in the ultimate sense. Such persons are called Mam Upasitaha, those who are completely dependent upon me. Upon means upon God. So we will continue the discussion next week. Thank you. So please remember, we will have Sunday lecture tomorrow, 3rd May at 11 a.m. online. Thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.